When I first met Lauren, I was attending an event and she was a sound healer there. And after her healing, the bliss and self-love I felt really drew me to her. So I followed her on Instagram, and then her content, which was so beautiful aesthetically, but also the message really pulled me to her even more. And then we ended up talking at a circle where she shared her story of growing up with dyslexia and neurodivergence, and that really hit it for me. I knew that I wanted to get her on the show to talk about her journey and her growth into confidence and self-love and as an entrepreneur. So this week on the podcast, we talk about that and so much more. It's a free-flowing conversation. Highlights from this episode: how Lauren navigated school and relationships after being diagnosed, or how she likes to put it, have her gifts revealed, of dyslexia in 4th grade. How the limiting stories from her school days held her back briefly while growing up, but ultimately amplified her gifts as an entrepreneur, space holder, and creative. How this spark within has guided her out of stories of victimhood constantly within her life and into spiritual practices of radical responsibility, accountability, and deep honesty. And yes, these are spiritual practices. Lauren and we both reflect on aging, and Lauren reflects on her 20s and looks ahead at the next decades of her life, asking the big questions. And like I said, this is a free-flowing conversation, so we get into so much more. There's so many beautiful little pearls here, and I believe this episode will be so inspiring for anyone who has felt held back by a diagnosis, specifically a learning disability from childhood, because with Lauren, yes, of course, we all go through our moment of victimhood. It's a part of the cycle here to take back our power. And Lauren is in that space where she has taken back her power, and the way that she speaks about her past and her future will really light you up. If you are interested in connecting with Lauren, you can find all of her information in the show notes. She does mention this at the end, but she has open enrollment for a new healing container that starts September 9th. So if you listen to this episode and she's really speaking to you, definitely don't wait to connect with her. And as always, you can find my information in the show notes as well. You are listening to the School of Whispers podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, and this is my space to get real, open, and weird about my life experiences as a psychic, medium, energy healer, and student of Chinese medicine. On the show, I'll be sharing my healing journey and the concepts I've learned along the way, and I'll be having guests on talking about the same sort of thing. I am so happy you're here, and I hope this show leaves you feeling inspired and empowered to learn how to listen to the whispers of your own body and spirit. Let's get into the show. Well, to start, I'm going to give you a big warm welcome. Thank you for being here, and I'm really looking forward to what we're going to bring into this space. Just a disclaimer for you guys, I might be sounding a little bit just down close to the earth today, just because I started my bleed yesterday, and it's just that kind of day. So we're going to be soft and warm and open, I guess. I feel like we're going to get really vulnerable here. So anyways, Lauren, I'm going to give you the space to introduce yourself and say whatever you feel like you feel called to say in the beginning.
Let's do it. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Roberts. I am the founder of Rise Up, Live Bright, a heart-led business that holds all the work I do in many different forms. I am a self-love mentor, sound healer, and within my sound healing work, or my self-love work actually, I do sound healing and emotional freedom technique and energy work and intuitive work, and those tools really help me guide individuals to accessing and learning to love themselves. And so I even say, even within my sound healing work, that energy is there. So within Rise Up Live Bright, I have so many different streams into that ocean of Rise Up Live Bright, in which I work, and the medicine works through me from spirit and God and unconditional love.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I can attest to the sound healing. I've sat in 2 of your healings, and I just went somewhere else. Where, I don't know. Yeah. But the feeling afterwards was always, I guess it makes sense. Because I didn't know you as well at the time, and but I felt afterwards was just this gooey love. So that was kind of the code that you were transmitting to us. So I kind of, when we were at Cindy's and we were talking about our story, a huge part of the story that I really felt called to hear more about was your experience with, how would you call it?
I would say dyslexia, being neurodivergent.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because I'll be 34 in a few weeks, and maybe by the time this podcast is out, I'll be 34 then. So I grew up in the 90s, and so they didn't really have appropriate tools or spaces for somebody that's neurodivergent or dyslexia, and I don't really think they knew, so there wasn't a lot of research around it. So a lot of common things that come along with dyslexia is like ADHD, focus stuff, like things like that too. So I even now, doing some research, I'm like, I think I also have undiagnosed ADHD and things like that too. But that being said, really I'm just a uniquely molded brain from the universe, from God, and it's like a creative brain. And I think a lot of people who live with dyslexia in some form and whatever comes along with that and manifests in their life, they're really creative people because they think out of the box.
Yeah. Did you read Percy Jackson?
I did not. No.
So he had quote unquote dyslexia, but it was more that his brain was wired to read ancient Greek.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so it always made me, because one of my good friends growing up had dyslexia, and it made me think of, what if their minds were just wired for something else?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I just, seeing who you are now and how expressive and free, but also in your business, like you're and I could be wrong, we're all working our thing, but you're in your masculine and your feminine in a beautiful, balanced way. And I know that just being in school as a quote unquote normal kid is tough, and it does something to your self-confidence. And now that I'm in school now, especially in the beginning, I had to face a lot of that wiring, rewire a lot of that bullshit programming. So I would love to hear how you moved through that through childhood. What were, maybe if you have tips and tools for adults with it, but really like how you made your way to this place of self-confidence and self-love.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to when I was diagnosed. Let's go start there. I was in 4th grade. So I actually was diagnosed. I always say quote unquote diagnosed, like when my gifts were presented to me when I was in 4th grade. So it was later in my elementary school years, and so from that point on, the moment I was diagnosed with dyslexia, it was like, oh, she's going to have a hard time in school. She's not going to be able to possibly go to college. She's not, it's like things are going to be...
They were writing your story for you.
They were writing my story for me. Or instead of pivoting the perspective on it and like, how can we amplify Lauren's gifts? I was very creative, but also highly sensitive and extremely shy, so during that time I was lumped in with this group of individuals from autism, Down syndrome, and then me, dyslexic. And so I would be sent to the classrooms with all these beautiful children. And I say this like out of total respect, because I even think children that come to this world with autism or Down syndrome or any type of gift in that way too, they're angels here. But for somebody who is I was a normal child, just the way I learned was differently in that way. It really hindered my confidence and my self-worth, because then it's also, my self-worth was based on what I was going to achieve in school. or how I read or how this or how that. So it just really, my whole school career was based off of having that diagnosis, and then just like, it's just going to be hard for her. Everything's going to be hard. Reading, learning, this, that. Also, the school system didn't mold the material to my brain. Mm-hmm. And it didn't for a lot of people then, and then this has also seeped into my peers. Once they found out I had dyslexia or this or that, like, it would always be like some type of joke, so it just, things like that really affected my, in early adulthood and like adult life. Like, it affected my relationship with my significant others' families and stuff like that, so it's just, when I look back, I'm like, wow, it was a huge story that I had to unwrite for myself, like unwrite and rewrite for myself. And how I did that was, I actually ended up going to college in New York City, a community college there. And they had amazing tools for somebody with dyslexia or a learning gift.
What was the school?
It was City Tech College in downtown Brooklyn.
Okay.
And they had all these resources. So, for instance, math might as well be like another language to me. It might as well be Mandarin. It's so difficult for me. It always has been, and I just have learned to accept that. And so up there, I would take my math class, and then I'd immediately go to an hour tutoring session. That allowed me to be successful. And I also had to change my standard was passing the class, like C, B, whatever. It didn't have to be an A. That's not the success. As long as I get through it and I'm putting effort towards that goal. But up there, when I did school up there, and I ended up really liking it because I got to take art history and like the classes I really wanted to. And then I moved back home and finished my associate's degree there. And that was a huge healing point for me, because throughout my whole college career, just with my associates, I had principal's honor roll, for the most part. Even like the first additional maths that I did, I was doing really well in them. And then, it was really interesting. Like, I had principal honor roll throughout it. And then, it was, I remember this picture I took. I had this, they gave me this collared shirt with like a thing. And, I think it was only like the first year or two I was fully on it. But still, that was super, I was like, no, I am smart. I just learn differently. And learning styles are so important, So it was just so cool. And then when I got home, and I finally graduated with my associate's degree, I was like, when I got my degree in the mail, I thought I was going to be like celebrating and be so proud of myself. But really what ended up happening, it was a huge trigger for me. And I just released so much shame and embarrassment and just trauma from experiencing that from like kindergarten to senior year of high school, and beyond. So how I did that was resisting a thing I really didn't want to do, but I knew I needed to do it, was, for instance, going to get my associate's degree and rewriting that story, and then also rewriting the story of me being smart. And what actually helped me too is researching really successful people in the way of how they created something or they discovered something. And it's amazing how many people who like kind of do different things in the world, they actually have dyslexia. It's really cool. The person who discovered the Titanic, he has dyslexia.
What do you mean discovered?
Like he is the one who like found the Titanic in the deep ocean.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I forgot his name. This is a part of dyslexia. I forget names and stuff. I have to like keep notes, but yeah, things like that. I started okay, wow, and that's not talked about, and through my own self-love healing work and things like that, I really started reprogramming my perspective on it. My story. What's my story about it? It's a gift. I knew from the moment I was young, I was never going to do something that was conventional. I tried really hard for a long time to fit into a box, but my shape does not fit into a box. It kind of flows and it's organic, and I create. That's what I do. And so I think if more people realize that the potential of existing as human is limitless, it really is. And I mean, sometimes school is necessary for people if you want to be a doctor, or for instance, an acupuncturist. Like, you have to do those things. But if that's what you really want to do, great. But then there's other people who are creatives, in the sense of art and, you know, creating your own business, and we're all creative. But yeah, little tangent there, but if that makes any sense. But yeah,
you know, it makes me think, I mean, when I started school and I started making friends in Orlando and this, you know, in the community that we're in, I mean, I just thought that was the only option. When I did my undergrad, because I didn't know what I wanted to study, when I finally decided psychology, my mom says, well, you had to get a master's then. And I said, oh, yeah, of course. And I just didn't know that there were other options for becoming a professional in something. And I mean, I'm very grateful for my education. And actually this summer, because I had a lot of questioning, like, am I really doing the right thing, or am I just checking the box once again? Because when I got my undergrad degree, I didn't walk, because I didn't feel like, I just felt like I just did what was expected of me. It wasn't really for me, whereas this degree is for me. But like, God, there's just so many other ways to learn, and I wish that it was more at the forefront of the conversation. There's so many ways to be a quote-unquote professional, to share your gifts with the world and make a living off of it. And you don't need a fucking degree to do it.
No. Yeah, and I think that's what I think the world is the mindset is changing about that with the younger generations. Like, I've seen it with specifically like women that I work with, or close friends and colleagues that are in their early 20s. They're doing it differently. And then even, you know, my youngest brother, he's 13, and so even that, you know, he wants to program, like, he wants to be a computer programmer. He has these bright ideas. And like, when I say, if we can get out of our own way with what is possible, anything is possible. If you have an idea to create something that nobody else has ever created, create it, because that's a pearl from the universe, God, the divine, that's for you. And if you don't do it, it's going to move on to somebody else, you know. So it's things like that I always try to remember, even with business now, with Rise Up Live Bright. When I have an idea and I'm like, that's not possible. It's that limiting belief coming up again from conditioning from my childhood and just existing as human in this society. But then I remind myself, okay, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. You know, it is possible. And we can get stuck in it. I say it's like quicksand. You know, we can definitely get stuck in it. But yeah, it's limitless, and you don't need a degree. And don't invest in something that's not going to be you're not going to be passionate about. Now, I do have to say, I think sometimes people need to go through their journey with that, and there's a destiny in that. But if you're sitting there thinking like, am I in the right, you know, maybe get out of your comfort zone a little bit and explore. Yeah, I'm a huge believer in, I love meeting, let's say, clients, and they're like, we're in session, they're like, I have this idea and I want to do it. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not a business coach, but I'm like, okay, then let's make some actionable steps personally to get you to that point. Because for me, another thing that really lights me up is seeing people living in their purpose and doing something that's going to be a beautiful impact on the world. And if that means within a self-love healing journey, I'm also guiding them to that, great, you know? Yeah, I'm really passionate about that stuff, and especially the part of you don't need a degree to be quote-unquote successful or thrive in the world. Like, what is actually going to make you joyful? Have a spark of joy in your day-to-day. What's going to make you feel fulfilled and grateful for existing? Waking up every day and feeling drained because you're like, oh, I gotta go to work. You know, we all have those days still, even if you're in your purpose, you know, where you just want to rest. But if it's like a daily thing, maybe that's something to reevaluate. Or maybe it's a mindset shift. I see that a lot too. Maybe you just needed a new perspective on the position you have, or things like that.
Yeah. At what point did self-love become the focal point in your business?
So it's really interesting because I've been sitting with this a lot, especially this year has been really expansive for me as somebody. This year seems super quick, but also super expansive in the same sense, because so much has unfolded. I've had to step into new leadership roles and all of that. So I've been really marinating on, okay, where did this actually all start, you know? Because it's kind of an evolutionary process. The self-love work actually started from my own journey. And at the time, I had a beautiful friend who was also a mentor, and when I started, it's really interesting. So I had a self-love journal. That's how my first self-love anything. And I remember I was working on it for like 6 months. It was like,
and how old were you?
I think that was in 2000. I was working on it in 2019.
Okay.
I'll be 34 in August. So I think that was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was flowing into 20. I was
so
just getting
Saturn return.
I was in
era.
Listen, the Saturn return is why I'm here.
It sucks.
It was like the most transformative but also like potent portal for me, because if I didn't go through those things, that's when I had my full-on initiation. But through that, through my own self-work and self-journey work, and like getting my Reiki master certification and emotional freedom technique certification and like all these things, more for also myself. And then my mentor was like, you should consider like doing this. You're really good. And I started working with her at different events and stuff, especially with my sound healing, and then just like speaking and, you know, you can say it's channeling, but just speaking from the heart and what's true. And she's like, Lauren, I'm just going to plant the seed for you. You really should consider doing this work, mentoring people, thinking about doing healing containers, because she's like, there's something there. And I think sometimes we all need that person to see the potential of who we are when we can't see it fully. And at that point, I still was like, is it possible? Is it not? Because I was talking about starting Rise Up Live Bright as more of a business instead of a blog, because I had it as a blog at first to just talk about what my journey is and to connect with like-minded people. And I started talking about like the possibility of working in that capacity with people. And I was getting a lot of pushback from it. Well, how are you going to do that? You need this, you need that. No, I don't. I can do this. And so it kind of started from there. And so how I started was I channeled this 30-day journal. It's like 100 pages long. It's a beautiful journal. And I remember selling it for like $20. And it was really impactful for people. And that journal turned into a healing container that was a month long. It was $333 at the time. And, you know, I still have some clients that were in that journey with me. They flew a little bit and then they kind of came back into my healing work now. And I look back on that and I was like, that was even impactful then. And then it kind of evolved into what it is now, you know? And so the self-love work kind of birthed from my own healing experiences, doing the certifications that resonated with me, and just having a mentor to help me see the vision, you know? And so I constantly am reminding myself of the possibility. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have even thought this was possible. Like, it's also like I follow people that have done this work, or yoga teachers that I love, and I'm like, but that's not possible for me. But it is so possible. So that's kind of how it birthed. It's kind of it's not a one pinpoint thing, you know? It's kind of the evolutionary process of me as a space holder and healer. Yeah. And I'm continually, constantly to expand my education and, you know, things like that, and looking into that. And integrity and respect within containers, any container I hold, is the utmost importance to me. And for people to decide whether a space is safe or not. I'm not the indicator. Like, you can't tell me if you're in a healing container with me I can't tell you if the space is safe. You have to decide whether or not. So I say, like, I hold brave spaces, you know, because when somebody says like, oh, this is a safe container, I'm like, yeah, but you don't decide that, the people that come to. So those are things that I have kind of evolved from what I want to be as a space holder, what I've also experienced as having space held for me. And then it's evolved into this epic, beautiful business that is still 100% growing. And who knows what it's going to be like in a few years. But yeah, I keep on remembering, hold the vision. Like, what do you really want? How do you want to feel? You know, all that thing. Hope that answered your question. I was like, oh, I have to pinpoint. I don't know the pinpoint of exactly, but I think it's just the evolutionary process of me.
Yeah, and I really believe that the thing that we are finding ourselves teaching others is the thing that we're meant to learn the deepest in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you can pinpoint it because it's your whole life.
It's my whole life. Yeah, I think this is something I've said before, and it's reminding me. I said, the universe, whatever label you want to put on higher power, universe, God, source, has been preparing me for this my whole life. Birthing me as a beautifully highly sensitive being with a different way of seeing the world, you know. And then every experience I've had from here on out, like, it's like crazy to think about. And I love doing podcasts and like talking about things like this, because it even allows you to think, be like, oh man, like reflect on your journey. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so in what ways do you feel that your I know you are such a creative soul, but what can you pinpoint possibly some ways that your neurodivergence has served you in your business and in your creation of a safe or a brave container?
Yeah. So I think for me, how it has benefited and let's say amplified me as a business owner and creative is that I always can find a way of figuring most things out. At the time I had a podcast, I'm like, okay, let's figure out how to do a podcast. You know, I look at things and I'm like, it can be figured out. And it might not be a way that most people do it, but it's my way, you know? So I always can figure most things out. Even the way I create graphics or my reels or this or that. Do I get inspiration from trending audios or whatever? Like, let's talk about more of the business creative aspect of it. Absolutely, but I make it my own and I figure out a way to do it. And that's something that I really love about my brain. And the way I've gone about business hasn't been typical to what you've seen, what is typical of, like, let's say you go through a business coaching or something like that. I just kind of base it off of like intuitive knowing and listen to what my body says and listen to what my brain says. And yes, is there some more masculine things that you have to absolutely do to live in this reality, like taxes and things like that, which I'm still figuring out that part. But the creative part about it, my brain just allows me, I can look at a leaf and this inspiration comes. And instead of being sitting with it, I'm like, create, put out. Because it's just the way my energy works. And I think that is because my brain just thinks so much differently. And I think how it affects the way I hold space as an empathetic space holder and brave containers is that I can relate to people who might feel like they don't belong in a world that is so boxed in. And I just love, and as having this brain and also how I've grown up, it's allowed me to really appreciate human beings as a whole. We all are human. We do judge, like it's natural. However, for me, I meet people where they're at. So I don't care what religion you have, your race, your sexual identification. It doesn't matter. What matters to me is holding a space for you so you can take up space and find out who you are on the inside. All this, we're just here in this bodysuit for a short period of time. This stuff doesn't matter. It's like your soul and the unconditional love within you. And so I think because of the way my brain is and has been molded and how I've seen how society has affected me, I can kind of relate a lot to people in that way. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
okay.
I have two things that I feel called to just to reflect.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can remember them because I was listening. It's hard to think and listen. Oh yeah. One thing that I'm gathering from you is, it's so easy to say, oh, like, this world wasn't made for me. Yeah. This world was made for other people who think in the way that they're supposed to and have that blah, blah, blah. It could have become a story, and it so easily could have become a victim story. And I love how that just doesn't seem, and maybe you went through your own thing, but it doesn't seem like an option for you to think that way. Did you ever feel that way? Like maybe in your early 20s? I know 20s are just a fucking rough time in general.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do think, yes, I 100% felt for a long time like the blame game, the victim mentality. I did have that. I mean, for instance, I've been in spiritual practices since I was a kid. My mom is very open to that stuff. And then I was really into Buddhism and then yoga.
As a kid, so you're always...
Yeah, like I would say like 14 to 20. I still like definitely it's ingrained in the way I see the world too. And yoga and all those things. I was in it. However, it was surface level. It wasn't fully integrated and tap rooted. So I still had that victim blame game mentality. Like, oh, woe me. I have dyslexia. Like, I'm just not going to succeed. But then I would get this, I call it this spark of love within of like, but you can, Lauren. So it would be like a little step. Like, it would be applying for college. That was huge for me. I was resisting that, but something in me told me I needed to do that for myself. And I actually learned a lot about myself. It's something I had to prove to myself in like a loving way that I could get through. And I think back and I'm like, oh, poor 20s Lauren, you know, even teenage Lauren, you know, if she only knew, you know. But I think it takes those crumbling moments when you're on the ground crying, but then you pick yourself up. To me, that's, you love yourself enough to pick yourself up. Sometimes people don't pick themselves up and they need extra support in those ways. But I always had that little thing fire within me, be like, get up, sit up. And I truly believe it's my higher self and like spirit. And what that really is too is just that unconditional love that we are all created from. It's not separate than us. That is, to me, that is the groundwork of what self-love is. It's just tapping back into that energy and remembering that energy even when times are dark. So I remembered that. And that's why I'm here now. And do I go through moments of time where that victim comes up a little bit? Absolutely. But I have the tools to get through it in a strong foundation. But yeah, I 100% used to play the victim mentality, the blame game. Yeah, it's a very slippery slope you can get into. But it's like taking that radical responsibility. We can blame, expect other people to heal us or do the work for us or make us better and make us happy. But the only person that can actually really do that work, we can get support, but the only person that can actually do that work when you're out of session, when you're not in like a retreat or, you know, whatever it may be, is you. For instance, like acupuncture. You give beautiful acupuncture, but for people to have good success and integrate that session, they have to do the work outside of it too, or the symptoms are still going to show up. So, and that goes for like my work too. I tell people all the time, the practice starts when you leave this space, this session. That's when it really starts. I'll be here to support you when you need it. But that's, I say, radical responsibility, accountability, and deep honesty. You have to have that if you want to truly tap in and have sustainable self-love. So I think that's the blame and victim. It's like I actually ended up taking radical responsibility for that. But yeah, like I said, yeah, that was me at one point. For sure. Yeah.
I feel like what I hear people say, what I've heard people say in my teens, 20s, I'm going to be 28 at the end of the month, so I'm still in my 20s, but hearing people say, these are the best days of our lives, don't waste them. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? This is the best day?
It's confusing.
Because it's so difficult. And I think aging, at one point I was like, because when people are like, oh, I'm another year older, I would think, well, that's better than the latter, being dead.
Yes, that's true.
Getting older is such a gift. And I really put my foot in the ground and say, all the information, I think it was like 16 at the time, all the programming is such bullshit.
The anti-aging. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but especially as healers, nobody really prepares us to understand that if you truly want to step into that desired role, you're going to suffer a lot, and you're going to have to learn the thing that you want to do to help people. And I definitely feel for all of us in our 20s.
Yeah. And I'd say the 20s are figuring it all out. I mean, my 20s, I definitely could have utilized a little better, but that's my journey story. Like I've hustled my whole life, at the time came from a lower income family, work, you know, all of that stuff. Lived in New York for a few years. But yeah, 20s are a beautiful thing. I feel like your 20s are when you're like climbing up a mountain and you're really figuring out who you are, you know, and you try things out, you don't try things out, you try to be a certain person that you might not, doesn't fit you. It's like you're in a changing room, just trying to figure it out. And that was me too. And yeah, 30s are such a gift. And I'm still learning so much, but the confidence you have, because I think you start, and this is going to be very spicy and very big sister moment, but you just stop caring so much about the BS, the bullshit. You know, it's like there's so much BS. And as healers and intuitives, and you do this work and you ground deeper into that work, and you do your own work so you can hold greater capacity, you see right through that stuff. You know, and so that is something that I am truly blessed for. Now, is it painful sometimes for me? Absolutely. Because I've had to make some very empowered but hard decisions, and also have really, I say, conscious, loving conversations with people that didn't work out in the way I thought it was going to work out. However, I'm proud of myself, you know. And you also have to, and I love your 30s because you also realize that you do have to sit with your own shit too. You know, you have to. You can't, we just talked about, you can't blame everybody else. You also have to reflect on, like, okay, what was my impact in this situation too? How can I be better? And I'm not talking about better of being this perfect person, but just better for yourself, you know, not better for anybody else. Yeah, it's funny. I love my 30s. I mean, I'm going through a huge personal transition right now. Huge. And while I'm processing it and I'm evolving, it's like one of the most healthy edges and transformations ever. I was like, wow, who would have thought this? And, you know, I'm not at a place now where I can talk about it personally and publicly yet. And I will, you know, eventually, because I think it's so beautiful. But I am in my own processing right now. But it's just a message that you can be going through epic transformation, meeting so many edges, but still also be moving toward your purpose and your passion, still figuring yourself out. It's just,
yeah, there's seasons to it.
There's so many seasons.
And sometimes it'll put life on hold, and sometimes life just keeps going.
Sometimes it feels it. Yeah. Sometimes it feels it. Yeah. It's so interesting right now, the energy. And I know I'm not the only one going through it. There's so many other people that are going through their own evolutions or identity crisis or whatever, but it's so cool. But yeah, your 30s are for that too, you know, but you're just so grounded and confident in who you are, you know, for the most part. I'm sure there's people that go through their own moments of transformations and hard moments. It's life, but yeah. I reflect on my 20s. I'm like, oh, girl, you partied. You partied it up. Yeah, it's funny to look back.
A friend of mine, she reads Vedic astrology, and she was looking at my chart. She goes, oh, Steph, life's going to pop off in your 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And I said, hell yeah, better with every decade.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. I have a friend, and she's like, Lauren, she's like, I can see you in your 60s, legs out, just holding space for a bunch of younger women, not giving a fuck. Yes. And I was like, yeah, I'm getting there, you know. Just like legs wide open, sitting with the dress, just like, yeah, bitch. Yes. Long hair, you know. And it's hold that vision. Like, how do you want to feel in that, you know? It's I think too, we get so stuck on I was thinking about this yesterday actually, because my birthday is coming. Like I said, I'm going to be 34 in a few weeks, August 29th. And I was looking at, like, let's say 100 years. We're here for 100 years. I'm only through like 3 of those 10 years, you know, like whatever. Wait, was that right? 100 years? I don't know.
Those 10 decades.
Yes, yeah. 10 decades. There we go. I'm like,
it's funny. I was thinking about that the other day.
I know.
Too.
I was like, I'm good. It's okay. You know, everything, money, same thing. It comes and it flows. There's always an opportunity to reset and restart. There's always an opportunity to change. There's always an opportunity to ground in deeper into who you are. Like, we really are here for such a short period of time in the grand perspective of things. We don't have to get into the whole, like, other dimensions and all that. Totally different podcast. Let's talk about it. Because that's a whole other part of it. But yeah, it's like thinking about that. What do you want to do what do I want to do the next 70 years of my life? Who do I want to be? You know, maybe in my 60s I'll own an eco farm and be like, all this I'm putting effort into now will fund that, you know, or like whatever. For me, I just want to make a really beautiful impact on the world. That's all I want to do.
I feel like with that kind of desire, there's so many Easter eggs.
So many Easter eggs. Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
So you're gonna open and be like, oh, let's close that one.
You're like, not that one. It's like the one when you're doing an Easter egg hunt and it's like a penny.
Yeah.
And you're like,
really?
For somebody else.
Yeah. On the other thing earlier when you're answering a question that came to mind, when I was asking how your neurodivergence has amplified your business, or you within your business, was it seems like it's really taught you how to stay in your own lane. How do you feel about the comparison in your life?
Yeah, so can you maybe amplify that question a little more?
Yeah, so because you were compared to others in school, in the class that you were secluded almost into, and then your classmates and your peers, it was always through the lens of what you can't do compared to them and all that stuff. And then when you're in school, you were learning, wait, no, I'm not wrong or less than, I'm different, and I'm meant to learn in different ways. So it seems that you were being called to figure out, like, what is Lauren's way, rather than looking out at everyone else around you, like, or maybe you did look at everyone else and how they learned.
Yeah.
But does that am I
100%?
better?
Yeah. So I feel like there's two parallel streams here. Staying in my lane and the fact that it's paving my own way. So that's kind of what I was hearing is definitely eventually did pave my own way. And I always kind of have. And I do think there are lanes that are already put in place that are beautiful if that's the route you want to go and if that's actually aligned for you and that's something you want to do. Not everybody else. What you want to do. And then there's the people like me who've paved their own path. And my path is also supported by a bunch of people who are my soundboards. And so you can't think of a highway. This is like silly, but this is how my brain works. Think of a highway. It's not one person that builds a highway. It's a team. It's a community. It's a bunch of workers. So even though I paved my own path, there's also a bunch of people along the way that has helped me. But it is also my way. I'm the guiding light of that. So yeah, I 100% do stay in my lane in that way. I'm going to do it my way and what's going to be right for me, with also aligned guidance, with also discernment.
Aligned guidance. I love that term. My ability to discern has really, in the past 2 years, I've been called, not do or die sounds extreme, but it's been feeling like that. Discern or pay the consequences.
Oh, 100%. And listen to your gut on those things.
And I feel like when you are this bright light, a lot of people do want to guide you, but it's not always from this, I don't know, sometimes it's not for me. Their desire to guide.
It's an agenda to it. And that can be a desire to guide or a desire to
control,
be a part of what you're a part of. And I'm not saying this like to dog on anything it's just something I have witnessed too, is the more beautiful impact and light you pour into the space. And I mean, I'm saying this from in the physical sense, but also like the spiritual sense too. I've had so many occurrences for me that has happened that have been very spiritual, and I'm just like, whoa, I couldn't even make this stuff up, so it's also that, like, the discernment. But also sometimes we need to go through those times in our life to actually really see. Maybe spirit has been putting like the signs in front of us, but we just are blind to them. But yeah, it's really important. I say this with clients. I say this with people that come to any of my events. When they ask me advice, I'm like, just keep on strengthening that discernment muscle. Don't let it turn into a wall and judgment, but just discerning. How does your body react when you're around somebody? Do you want to sign up for that thing? Or are you signing up because you want to be a part of something like that? Or is it because you actually really need it? It's things like that I think really are important.
Yeah.
And anything that's forced is not going to be meant for you.
Yeah. And it's hard for me, very often what was happening is I would get older people saying, oh, I see you as a little sister and I feel obligated, or I feel called to protect you and guide you. And one part of me would think, I don't need your help. But then I'd be like, oh, Stephanie, be humble. And then so I would go into whatever their mentorship or whatever it was. And then the things that they were saying, I was like, whoa, I didn't think it that it would have to be that way, but they know better than me. What do I know? And kind of pushing down my intuition, my own wisdom, so that I could be under this wing and feel special in it. And it wasn't that it's not necessarily them being wrong or bad for me. It was more I was leaning into them because I felt not enough or unworthy, and I thought maybe I could find that proof there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's really important when people invest in like any containers or anything. Just why are you actually doing it? Why are you actually doing it? Are you doing it because you want to love yourself and you are doing it because you hate yourself? So there's a difference there, and I'd rather somebody pivot their perspective a little bit before investing in even something with me of, okay, you're not doing this because you hate yourself. You actually like love yourself, and this is why you're investing in something like that. It's also like, are you investing in something and being a part of something because you are putting somebody on a pedestal? That their intuition, their journey, this is better than yours, so you need to be under somebody better than you because, like you said, you're unworthy, if that makes sense. Like, because I think about stuff like that, and I try my best as somebody who holds space in that way. I'm like, listen, take me off. Like, I say this right off. I'm like, take me off the pedestal. And I'm very honest. I'm like, I went through this last week, so just let's put me off the pedestal. I'm at ground level with you. We're here to strengthen your intuition. If something doesn't feel aligned with you, tell me, So it's things like that. I never think anybody should tell you you're wrong or you have to be with them or you can't, if that makes sense. I'm just really passionate about that too, because I've seen it with myself and then other clients who have come to me who have experienced trauma in like different communities. So that's something that I'm a big advocate for, is like discernment and using your own intuition and growing that muscle. But that comes from trusting yourself, and that comes from that self-worth and the guidance from within. And it's a muscle. It's a muscle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen. I'm going to take a moment to feel in if I have another question bubbling. Oh, yes. Okay. So you mentioned math, you mentioned money. It's funny, my husband, he's in finance, and he actually stopped taking math in grade school. In New Zealand, you're allowed to just, after a certain age or grade, you're allowed to choose like classes that you never want to take again. So it's funny that he's like, he had to relearn how to do math through Khan Academy about 5 or 6 years ago. And he's very intuitive and natural on it. Me, on the other hand, we say I have Stephanie math. Like, for whatever reason, things add up to what I believe they are. But man, they in the universal language of math, whatever, for some reason doesn't add up to Stephanie math. But just having that background with numbers and then having your own business, I would love to know a little bit more about your relationship with money.
Ooh, okay, I'm going to get real vulnerable and real honest here. I personally am still working on my money story. I come from, like I said, my parents were young when they had me. My mom was 20, and one time she was working 3 jobs. And then I realized, like, both sides of my family, my mother and father's, there's something with money. So it's a deep-rooted story of security and safety. And so that is something I am continuing to work on and have to work on. It's always the months where it's like, is it going to come in? Is it going to come in? But the months where I'm held and I know that I have my basic needs met, I can ease. So it's interesting. But yeah, I think I was sitting with this a few months ago, because last year especially I went full time with business and it wrecked my nervous system. And this is for anybody who's listening who might be a beautiful blossoming business. It's okay to have a bridge job while you grow something if it's going to allow you to feel safe and secure for your nervous system. So I want to say that. And so, yeah, a few months ago I was thinking about this, how one common thing that most people, if it was one thing that most people are concerned about daily, whether you have a lot of money or you don't have any money, is money. So I think it's a deep-rooted thing in society. Mm-hmm. And it's such think about all those people that are thinking about money, but maybe not in like a positive way. It's scarcity, it's security, like that's energetics. So I'm trying to remind myself, okay, why do you want to call in money? First, basic needs, right? But also I want to call in money and wealth for my future family to do amazing things for my family who don't have much, you know? And also, I believe good people need money to do good things. So, honestly, I'm still working on my money story. I'm still working on that scarcity because it's so deep rooted for me. Security and safety is really important to me. It's my, like, I would say one of my probably number one triggers, even besides like dyslexia and things like that.
Yeah.
So this is another message of, you can be somebody like me who does this work and holds containers and still be working on things. You don't have to be your best, quote unquote, best self to want to do something that's extraordinary or impactful or start something. You don't have to love yourself to be perfect. I'm going to love myself when I'm X amount of weight. I'm going to love myself when I have this college degree. I'm going to love myself when my money story is better. No, start now, little at a time. Invest in the things that are going to be impactful in your life, maybe instead of material. And yeah, I think the working on the money story is like a huge thing, but it takes time like anything else. And I think it's so wrapped up with everything else, you know, it's amazing. Money and love are definitely like so tied into one another. So that's my goal for the next, let's say, this year to come, really focusing on the energetics of that and like rewriting those stories even further. But that's a beautiful thing about this journey. It's like layer by layer, and it's actually like, I've learned to pivot my perspective, and I say this to so many people, of those things, even like this money story, right? It's not something that's presenting itself to be malicious or harm me. It's actually presenting itself to show me what I need to clear so I can have a better quality of life and feel better about money. You know, and I do have time where I'm like, feel really good, but then things come up, like life happens like in that way. But imagine like if it's just easeful, you know, like, wow, hold that vision and understand that sometimes those things, shadows, whatever that come up, whether it's money story, anything else, aren't there to be malicious or hurt you. They're there to present themselves, and they're just an emotion you're experiencing. An emotion, it's emotion in motion, you know, just like process it. Yeah. But yeah, I'm still working on that. Have all the resources to like work on that, all the tools. But yeah, I think that's a common thread for a lot of people.
Thank you so much for being so honest.
Yes.
Because you so easily could have said, next question.
Oh yeah, I'm settled. I'm good. No, I mean, I'm going to be honest again. To be honest, last month I made my biggest month yet through huge partnerships with big entities in Orlando, UCF and a museum, and then like healing containers. But that, and I realized energetic wise, everything was effortless. The thing with UCF, they just were presented to me. I showed up. Healing containers. I talked to somebody, like popped out of nowhere. I was like, okay, when you're ready, no pressure. Like a few weeks later, signed up. So it's a reminder for me that things can be that way, but it's like sometimes you just got to surrender to it. But yet, I still am like, oh, I got to survive. So it's rewriting those things. But if I think the most important thing and what I'm trying to get at is the awareness of it. Yeah. And if you have awareness of it and you take actionable steps, inspired actionable steps to heal that, it's a weed, so it might pop up again, but you have the tools, then that's okay. And you can move forward. Don't get so attached to those things, you know. Yeah, it's this whole journey, human experience is wild, but I absolutely love it. Like, I love it. Sometimes it's really hard, but we go through cycles, death and rebirth, often, you know.
And rebuild.
And we rebuild. Yeah, we rebuild.
It was something that you said there, and I kind of leaned back, and I was like, yes. Because, it was last week or the week before. It was Lionsgate, and I was just texting my best friends, just asking her, you know, what did you work to manifest, whatever. She asked me, and I said, you know, actually, oddly enough, body image and beauty. And she was shocked because that was something that years ago that I really worked through, but all of a sudden it came up again, and I was really surprised that it came up. But as you do, it comes up, you have to sit down and work through it. I remember kind of saying to her, because it's just been very uncomfortable too, because also what I'm feeling that I may have to do to really get to that next level is going to be really, really uncomfortable. And I said, oh man, I'm a little bummed that I'm going through it again. I thought I had gone really far, but you know, I know that I was in the middle of it, and I know that there's so much progress with awareness, but anyways, she said, Steph, doesn't it feel like it's always something with us?
Oh, yeah.
But she goes, when is it done, though? Is it ever done? And I go, well, I think we're never done, but you have a point. I was kind of realized in our conversation that our language around it is so, I can't wait to get on the other side of it, or this sucks, or just down, 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 this is so lame, where it's a choice. And ever since we had that conversation, I've really been working on, when the portal opens, calling it the portal, or rather than just only calling it the darkness, or calling it an opportunity, and really shifting my language so that my body and my mind can start to view these as new opportunities to become myself even more and take my power back.
It's an opportunity. I'm going to say an analogy right now I use all the time, or like a story. So anybody who's listening who works with me or been with things, like, I say it all the time. Like, I visualize myself as a garden, or like, Steph, you're a garden, and you have this beautiful garden, but weeds pop up. But if you do not address those weeds, look at those weeds, they will overtake your garden, they will deplete the soil, and your plants will die. And that means the butterflies and bees and all the abundance, not only for your garden, but the world around you and the collective environment around you, will not benefit from the garden. But if you address that weed in that moment, and you pluck it and you compost it to make rich soil for your garden will thrive. Now, does that mean the weed won't pop up again? Absolutely not. The weed will probably pop up again, but it won't be as strong. You'll be more aware of it, and you'll know what to do. So what I mean by that is, like, those things that present itself, like you said, opportunity to create more space, to create more abundance, to create deep, rich soil for your ecosystem to thrive. But we can't ignore it. We can't have the convenience of just ignoring things anymore. And I do think it's a journey. I say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, and not being so attached to, like what you said, the body image thing came up, not being so attached, like, I gotta heal this. Maybe just use your toolbox and then move forward. That's it. Use your resources. And, I say the things we resist the most are the things we need to do. So, yeah, girl, the body image thing, we can talk about that too, but that'd be another hour long.
Yeah,
so
for real.
I feel you. But yeah, I think it's a reminder, opportunity. Those things are opportunities. They're not being brought forward to be malicious towards you. Just to create space. Yeah.
So I normally ask 2 closing questions, and honestly, though, you really answered the first one again and again. So if anything else comes up, but if you're also like, Steph, I answered this, I totally get it.
100.
But the first one is, what is a darkness? And you can answer to whatever level you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
But a darkness that you are recently moving through, or have found yourself in the other side of, that you feel called to share.
Yeah, of course. So I think a darkness I'm moving through in this moment, I actually love darkness, because that means that there's light, and that means I'm the rainbow in between, So it's alchemy. So a darkness I'm going through right now is just kind of this identity I've had for the last 12 years in my personal life and partnership that I'm moving through right now. That is about to totally change, And so while that is a darkness, it's also a beautiful evolutionary process right now. So that's something I'm working through without getting too much into it. And it's probably been one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through, besides watching my great-grandmother transition this world, like holding space for somebody transitioning. So with a whole bunch of other things. But yeah, it's been truly, truly painful, but also so beautiful. Just the process of it all. And but darkness can also be a very beautiful evolutionary process. So much happens in the void of life. That's where miracles are created. Yeah.
Nodding my head. Okay, my last question, because food therapy is such a piece of who I am, and I think that the best way to learn is through community. So I always like to ask my guests to share a food or a meal that comes to mind that has really been healing for you.
Ooh, okay. So this is hilarious. Like, I always laugh at myself. Foods that are healing to me are like warm bowls of soup. I like, even throughout this processing in my personal life, like all I've been wanting is warm bowls of soup. Like even when friends are going through things, I'm like, let me come over and make you potato chowder or tomato soup. Like, I am not I'm not vegan, so one thing I love is really making homemade bone broth where it's like jelly when it's cold, and then making a chicken soup out of it, or a warm bowl of soup that just has so much goodness. It's just such a good container for so much nutrients, and it just makes me feel so good, and it's so comforting. It hits so many levels, and then it's also the vessel you put in, like the bowl itself, for me. I'm a very textural visual person, so really beautiful bowl of soup. Yeah.
I love that. All right, everyone, if you listen to this podcast, go make yourself some soup, because the message is happening again and again and again.
Let us know what soup you made.
I actually made I go between making sauces and soups because I just love my carbs. For lunch I had chicken thighs with zucchini soup sauce and rice.
Ooh, that sounds really good. Yeah, I'm like a bowl plate type of person. I have like these bowls, but they're also long.
The wider.
And everything I eat is a Buddha bowl or some type of rice bowl or soup, something like that, where I can just have everything in one thing. Yeah, but I love that. Yeah, anything with soupy, saucy deliciousness like that, here for it. Here for it.
Okay, and as we get towards the end here, is there anything else that you feel called to touch on here?
Yeah, I think I just would like to end with saying that for anybody that might be feeling the lack of worth or love for self, to know that there is a spark in there within you, and it's always within you, and that one simple act of self-care, that can be getting outside, sitting with yourself, scheduling that therapy appointment, investing in something that you know will be really impactful, whatever it may be, to know just one step at a time, and that it is possible. It is so possible, and to just hold on to that belief, that spark of belief, because I truly believe the more we can love ourselves, the more we have a greater capacity to love those around us and the world as a whole. And that's an energetic shockwave, It's truly transformational. Like, if you can love yourself more, where you just smile at somebody at a grocery store and you make their day better, like, wow. But then you also do those things for yourself, and you can really thrive. I just want everybody in the world to feel that love for self, because it's so important. It can hold you through so much. So that's the only, I want to end right there.
I kind of want to piggyback on that and say, do those things and let them feel like enough, because it started in 2019 that I realized everything I did, the small bites of courage to help myself, because that was when I really, really went through so much self-loathing and really being down on myself. It all came to the surface in 2019, and since then, little things like sleeping in or going outside and doing nothing, or like just things for me, I realized, oh shit, I'm doing the thing, but I feel terrible and guilty while doing it. And it's been rewriting, and it literally just yesterday I was telling my husband, I feel good in a way I've never felt before, because I'm doing things or not doing things and I don't feel guilty, and it feels like enough for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So if you can start to just rewrite that story, because I grew up with being told, like, get shit done, like, don't sleep in, don't do all the things. Yeah, if you can start today rewriting that story, the fruits will come.
Yeah, 100%. And they come in its own way, and they manifest in their own way, not the way you thought. So just one little step at a time. Hug yourself today.
Yeah. I'm do it right now.
Hug yourself today and say, I'm learning to love you. I'm learning to love you.
I love that.
Just for today. That's it.
Lauren, how can people find you?
So my Instagram handle is Rise Up Live Bright, and you can find all my information there. My website, I have a new healing journey that we are starting August or September 9th, but enrollment's open for that. It's called Activation Self-Love. It's perfect for anybody who is, let's say, been doing the self-healing work and they're ready to like kind of get more into like a portal activation. It's so amazing. But all the details are there. My sound healing's everything. And then just like inspiring things for self-love and everything like that. All things self-love in so many forms, but Rise Up Live Bright on Instagram. Yeah.
And you all will find that in the show notes. Well, thank you so much. This was such an awesome conversation. I loved when before we started you said, these things are just going to come to us. Yeah, they really, really did.
Yeah. I feel pretty good about it. And, it's like when somebody can show up, and it's not just me, but anybody, like full authenticity and like just flow with it. It's so potent. And it's not forced. It's just flow. It's like two sisters having a cup of coffee or matcha or tea together. That's chef's kiss.
Gonna leave you with that mic drop right there.